Hi again, crafty friends. It's Heather. Oh, and Conan. Yes, hello. Okay, Conan's gonna help. And here's this week's episode video, whatever this is. And I want to talk to you about knitting. One of my very favorite things. Don't listen, Conan. You're still my favorite thing. But knitting is my next favorite thing. And yeah, so I used to have a knitting podcast back in the day. I remember, I didn't look this up. I haven't looked at that website in a while just because I'm kind of scared to. I don't even know if I still have if it's still mine anymore or any of that stuff. I should probably look into that, but the way I deal with things that I don't know about or I'm scared about, or I just don't think about them. I stick my head in the sand. But I used to have a knitting podcast called Knitting Gogh. It ran for a couple years. I remember doing a 30th birthday episode, which, considering I'm turning 35 this year, that shows you how long ago that was. But I really wanted to start up again. One of my New Year's resolutions for this year, apart from decluttering, which is the other thing this YouTube channel is going to be about, and I think I might alternate episodes, apart from the decluttering, is just connecting more to the community. I love the knitting community, and I mean, as a wider New Year's resolution, it's sort of my community here in this spot where I am in Toronto, and the community of all the dogs in the neighborhood, which is really great. So I just want to, I don't know, maybe community is my word for this year, and reconnecting with old friends and all that sort of thing. So, knitting podcast, finally doing this again. Some of the reasons I stopped, I moved 2.5 years ago, went through really big, 2016 was a big year of change for me. I think the podcast had stopped sort of a year before that-ish. And I'd always wanted to get back to it, but then stuff just kept happening that I didn't want to talk about, or just prevented me from recording, because I had to do things like pack up a whole house, a whole sort of 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo, and move across the country. And I got the dog, and doggy takes up more time, and all that stuff. But yeah, so that's why I stopped. But now I'm back. I'm in my comfy, wonderful little apartment that I love. Conan and I have our schedule now, and we've been together almost 3 years. So now we know what he likes to do and what I like to do and what I get to do when he's around. He has to be in my lap. I can't use my laptop on my lap. Or very rarely. But he doesn't mind when I knit. And so I've started knitting again. I sort of stopped for a while. I was in graduate school. So if I was at home and I wasn't writing or reading or working on some sort of assignment, I felt guilty. So I didn't do much knitting then. And then I was away over the summer and I brought knitting. Didn't really touch it very much. But now I'm getting back into it. And yes, okay, you do that. So I really started knitting again in about November. And I wanted to do some filming in November and December. I wanted to do it in November. And then I lost my internet. I switched internet providers, and there was a whole thing, and I had no internet at home for 10 days. And it was weird. And it's one of those problems that is not really a problem, but it felt like it. And that sort of scuppered that plan, and then Christmas, and I had a new job, and everything's been changing for a while, but I think things are slightly more stable now. So, my knitting, the thing that brought me back after only sporadically knitting on and off for the past few years. Well, I guess my most recent finished objects, these are from this spring and summer, I think. I had, you know when you have friends of a certain age and everyone starts having babies? Well, I feel like that happened a few years ago. And then it happened again this year. And it was a combination, I guess, of some people having second babies and then a bunch of first-time parents as well. And the first baby wave, about six or 7 years ago, I made little booties for all of them. And since then, my go-to baby present has been this little hat. I just think it's so adorable. But the reason I love it is because it uses up scrap sock yarn. I've made all of these out of the leftover parts of sock yarn that don't go into the socks. And I still have some left over. So this one was, I think, an Opal. I think it was one of the Van Gogh ones. And I think on Ravelry, I'll have it linked in the YouTube description down below. It's a free pattern. It's a newborn sock yarn hat. I just love this little I-cord detail at the top. So you decrease until you have 3 stitches. And then you just need a little bit of I-cord and tie a tiny little knot in it. I just think it's so cute. I think the pattern, like this one is smaller than this one. I think this one I did to the pattern, which I think is either 80 or 90 stitches. And I think this one was 100 because they were looking small, but I don't know much about babies. So I make a couple different sizes, about 10 stitches different, and then give them to the new parents. This one was some KnitPicks self-striping sock yarn. I have those socks. Actually, I have the original pairs of socks that this yarn all came from. They're all in my sock drawer. I don't often knit for other people, especially not other adult-sized people. But yeah, so we had the Opal, the KnitPicks, and then this was a Fibernyph Dyeworks sock blank. So it was one of those flat things that then I unraveled and knit myself a pair of socks out of that. And big sigh. And I also got this adorable little baby hat. I really like this because it's sort of mostly that pale purple, but then it has those crazy bright pops of color. And I was really happy that the pink ended up on the little stalk thing. But yeah, so I've handed out a bunch of these to friends. When I was traveling this summer, I actually got to meet up with a friend who was at the time living in Paris and had just had her baby. I got to meet up with her and hand them off in person. I mailed a couple to another friend. These guys should have gone to a third friend, but I didn't do it in time for the birth, and now the baby is about, how old's the baby? 7 or 8 months old, and I don't know if they'd fit anymore. So I've sort of just left them. And I think they'll just be the emergency hats for the next baby. I can think of a couple people more that are having babies that those will go to eventually. So that I did over the summer. I finished the last couple in September, I think, mailed those off to a baby that was supposed to be born in October but was born in September, including one that looked like a pumpkin. I used orange yarn and I did ribbing to make it look sort of like those pumpkin ridges, and then I did the top. I did that in green and then a little pumpkin stalk. So that was very cute, and the mother or the family sent me photos, which is adorable, but I won't share because I haven't asked. So what did I start knitting in November? What was so important that I thought I was going to be filming and posting and all this was going to start 2 months ago? I decided I needed a advent calendar / mitten garland. So this has been on my list to knit for a long time. I've collected the yarn. I have 3 different Christmas colorways. Oh, I have a mitten in progress. 3 different Christmas colorways that I've collected over years. Like, I've had these for 3 or 4 years, I think. I got this one. This is Cakewalk Yarns, who don't think is dying anymore, and was one of those, I feel like one of the first ones, or one of the first ones that really took off to do speckles. And so this one's Peppermint Bark. I got this when I attended one of the first 2, I think, SSKs that Leslie and Laura of the KnitGirlls put on. There was sort of a yarn swap, and you bring a skein, and you got a number, and then you got to go numbers were drawn, you got to go up to the table, pick out what you wanted to trade for your yarn. So that's how long I've had this, because that would have been 2013 maybe ish, somewhere around there. So that's the one that's got a mess hanging off of it, of a partially completed mitten. This one, oh no, let's go this one next. This one is Knitter's Nightmare in Fuji's Apples. So it's all apple colors, but it's also Christmassy. Knitter's Nightmare is a Canadian dyer, so it's always nice to buy from a fellow Canadian. And so this one's brighter, it's not speckly like that one. I really love this apple green. That is my favorite color. But yeah, so that's that one. And then the third color is Nomadic Yarns, Falala. And that's this one, which looks kind of similar to the Cakewalk. But the Cakewalk, I would say, it's a bit more pinky than this one. Or it's like, this one is sort of a warm brownish pink, and this one's a slightly cooler pink. And the speckles in the Nomadic yarn, it's more of sort of forest green and dark red. And then this one is the dark red, but then slightly different, sort of olivey, Kelly-y green. But they're different enough, I think. So my plan was, I started all this in November. I thought I could crank out a mitten a day and then be ready for December. And I also, along with cranking out a mitten a day, I was going to film a video each day of each mitten, tell you something, little something about it, put all those up. That obviously did not happen. And the total number of mittens I had on Christmas Day was this many. So 5. Yes, 5. But now that the pressure is off and Christmas is like 11 months away, 11 months plus, I'm hoping that for Christmas 2019, I will have a teeny tiny mitten garland. So I will link the pattern I finally chose to use for the mittens in the YouTube description. I believe it was the Smitten mitten, which is actually for a worsted weight yarn, and all these that I collected are sock yarn. So the first thing I did was start knitting one of these tiny mittens in sock yarn, just held alone, one strand of sock yarn. Then I realized to get a mitten that's a good size to put a tiny thing in, or even just to look nice hanging on the mantelpiece, that is not enough. Or that would take a lot more knitting. I'd have to cast on. There would have to be more stitches. It would take too long. So what I decided to do was hold the sock yarns double. So I just hold it double with itself from the inside and the outside of the ball. But I liked the width of the I-cord on the little hanging loop with the single strand of sock yarn. So I start with the loop, knit some I-cord, and then when I get to casting on the stitches for the cuff, then I pick up the other end of the yarn and cast on all that stuff together, or cast on with 2 strands at once. And then knit the little mitten. And it is very fast. It is possible to do one of these in a night of some good TV watching. I just stopped. I just didn't, for whatever reason. So this one, let's see if you can see the difference between these 2 yarns a little easier. So this one's Nomadic, and this one's Cakewalk. Again, they're similar, but I think they're sort of cute. And then there's the bright Knitter's Nightmare. Really pops out. So my plan, I have 3 colors. I don't want to buy more yarn, even though I could have more variety if I did that, because I've done the math. I have enough for 24 total, which worked out to 8 of each. So I'll have 8 little Knitter's Nightmare mittens, 8 Cakewalk mittens, 8 Nomadic mittens, and then I'll probably have a ribbon or something and hang them on my mantelpiece or somewhere. And I don't know if I'll use them as a countdown or an advent calendar or what exactly, but I think they're pretty cute. Although the one thing I'm thinking is, yes, bud. What I'm thinking or wondering about is maybe it should be a combination mitten and tiny sock garland, because I could do tiny socks that probably start out with the same sort of cuff and then sort of just a little stubby toe, more of a stocking, like a Christmas stocking than an actual sock. And then I would have 4 of each mitten and 4 of each sock. That might be a bit more visually interesting. It might just be a bit more interesting for me to knit 19 instead of knitting 19 more mittens. I only have to knit 7 more mittens and then 12 socks. So let me know in the comments below what you would do, what you think would be cute. It's a bit too late now to reserve like one color for socks and one color for mittens or something, because I started with the mittens and I wanted to do, the first thing I did, the first 3 were one of each color because I wanted to see how they went. And then I've just gone on since then. So I've got 2 of those, and then this mess goes with that. That's the Nomadic Speckly. But yeah, and you can see it gets a little, oh, that's my problem. It gets a little messy in the knitting bag because I use a smaller needle for just that first little inch or 2 of I-cord, and then a larger needle when I'm knitting with the 2 strands together. And I end up with a bunch of ends, but no one's wearing them. So I don't do a very good job. Like, I secure them down inside the mitten so they're not going to pop out, but I don't have to worry about them catching on stuff or anything like that. Conan's gone to guard the door. So that's been my latest knitting project, and I haven't knit a mitten in a few days, so I want to get back to that tonight, I think. Tonight is Outlander night. I'm very excited. So I think I will finish this while watching Outlander. Although maybe not. Outlander and Game of Thrones are the 2 shows where I don't like knitting because I just want to watch. I know what's happening because I read both sets of books, although Game of Thrones is past the books. But like, I know what's going to happen in Outlander, but I just want to see all the details of the sets and the costumes. Oh, it's so good. But yeah, so that's, what are you sniffing? What are you sniffing, boo? That's what I've been knitting lately. It's not much. I'm hoping it will soon be much, much more. Another upcoming episode I have planned, probably the next one, because a few more mittens will be kind of boring. Now I have 8 mittens. Ooh. I want to show you all the whips that I have just sitting around. All the works in progress that are half done. So old, some less old. I might even include some of the sewing works in progress that I have, because I also sew as well. Again, haven't sewn anything in even longer than I've knitted stuff that wasn't baby hats or mittens. I guess the last couple details is, this is the bag I'm storing the product in right now while it still fits. Not the yarn balls, but all the mittens. It's from Tangerine Designs, and it's all books, which is great because I love books. And there's that. Smaller needle. That's why I needed a bag, was to keep everything in check, like all the mittens, the extra needle, the ball of yarn that I'm currently using at that moment. And you help, don't you? Yes, you help. You're so helpful. Good boy. And now he's excited. So that's it for this little sort of intro / re-intro to Rycrafty. That's me. I'm Rycrafty all over the internet, Ravelry, Instagram, Twitter, which I might start using again, might not, don't know. Not sure if that will help with the whole community resolution or if it'll just make me sad. And yeah, tune in again next week. Subscribe so you don't have to remember to tune in, so you get a reminder. You get a little notice that I've uploaded a new video. That one I think is going to be some decluttering, and maybe some decluttering of the crafty areas of my house, which is basically most of my house. And yeah, have a great week. I hope you do lots of crafting, and I'll see you next week. Bye.